is a seller disclosure? What is a real property disclosure? Well, if you're looking to sell a property, okay, you're gonna have to, by obligation of the law here in the state of Illinois, create or basically fill out questions on a real property disclosure pertaining to different aspects of the property, because you have lived in the property and you know no one else knows the house more than you do, right? The state of Illinois requires you by law to disclose what you know about the property. The purpose is to basically get your mind over to the buyer. In other words, to transfer what you know onto the buyer's mind. Okay, that's basically what the purpose of a real property disclosure is. Now, there is a pamphlet put out by the Illinois Association of Realtors that I'm going to go through with you here in the video real quickly, and also show you what the document actually looks like, so that when you are filling out this information, you'll kind of have an idea of what it's like. Okay, so basically, once again here, this is a brochure produced by the Illinois Realtors Association. Let me kind of fill it out here for you in the video here. All right, so again, this is what the disclosure will look like. Here's the first page: Illinois Seller Disclosure Law, what every real estate buyer and seller should know. So it's a brochure. It doesn't have all the, it's not orderly correct all the way. It's kind of a brochure. You gotta read it from left to right like that. So let me just basically tell you this, right? How does the seller disclosure law affect you as a seller? So once again, the seller and the seller alone are responsible for completing the disclosure form. So would you have a real estate agent show it to you or do it for you? Can you have your realtor do it for you? The answer is no. You have to do it yourself. Okay. Now there are some exceptions, of course, and we'll get to that as well. But here again is they're asking who's going to fill this out. The answer to that question is the seller is going to have to fill it out, or the sellers, right? And only disclose those matters of which the seller has knowledge. Are you required to do an investigation? Are you required to go ahead and put in an inspection or appraiser, have it looked at? Of course not. You're not required to. If you do, that's great and all, but you know what will happen is, if you do have an inspection, is you're going to be aware of many more things. And again, the more knowledge you have, the more you have to, by law, show a buyer. So the question is, if you're looking to sell the property, of course, you know that the basement leaks, right? That's out of your, you have to go out of your way to find that out. You know that there's probably leaks from the roof, right? Or if you know something blatant, of course, fill it out. But if you do an inspection, you're gonna understand, you're gonna know much more of the property, and the law says you have to disclose everything you know, right? Otherwise, there will be that situation where you're gonna have to show it. Now, the thing is, the disclosure form is designed to allow sellers to fulfill disclosure requirements, and they're going to have 23 questions regarding the property in this particular one right here. See that? That's the form, okay? I'll bring it to you in a little bit. All right, and these are the following areas, okay? We're talking about the structure of the property, including the roof, foundation, walls, floors, questions about flooding, questions about the major mechanicals such as the furnace, electrical system, the plumbing system, the air conditioning system, well and drinking water, okay? They ask you about high levels of lead paint, high levels of radon, asbestos, production of methamphetamines, right? So this form is not to substitute an inspection, okay? It's just basically, again, to show what is there, okay? Now, is a disclosure required in all property? It says here that residential property disclosure report, which is this one right here. Let me just show you once again. Boom, there it is, okay? We're gonna fill that out. It has been required on all Illinois residential property transactions since October 1st, 1994. And that pertains to 1 to 4 residential dwelling units, okay? If you have a question concerning an exemption, consult your attorney or check the exemptions listed in the Act, the Real Estate Act, okay? So again, if you have a question of, well, is my property, is it exempt? Of course, I would love to help you out with that as a real estate agent here, 630-777-4597, of course, but always, especially when it comes to contract law and requirements and whatnot, a real estate attorney is your golden go-to tool. Of course, I have my own attorneys that I have worked with and I know, like, and trust, and I can, trust them to help you with this. But again, if you're curious about it, again, always consult an attorney, okay? Now, what about enforcement? All right, let's go ahead here and see some other things real quick here. All right, this is the brochure, so I'm trying to navigate around it here, or navigate through the thing. All right, let's see here. So enforcement. While no state agency is charged with enforcing the act, if the owner does not comply with the requirements, the buyer may have to rescind the contract or sue for damages, okay? So this should be done, actually, yes, before any offer is put out there, right? Because again, the purpose is to make sure that the buyer is aware of this and then write the contract. But if the contract's written and the disclosure has not been produced, then they would have, after reading, for example, if they write the offer, it's sent, submitted, but then they see the report, the RPD or the real property disclosure, and then they see it, they then have a right to rescind the contract, or they can also sue if they feel the seller knew about this and didn't disclose it, okay? Now, it says here that discloses any information in the report form that he knows to be false will be liable in the amount of actual damages and court costs. Okay, so that's the enforcement side of this, right? Somebody might ask, well, if I don't disclose, what's the consequences for me? Again, you could be sued, or they can annul the contract. Okay, a person who knowingly violates or fails to perform the duty, who discloses information that knows that to be false, they'll be liable for damages and court costs. Okay, and this form should first be completed, then signed. All right, so again, I'm reading this like as if it was a brochure, so if I was opening the brochure, I could do it. Now, I do have here brochures in the office here, so I could look at that, but I'm just trying to do this for you here in the video. Okay, so a couple more things. What is required under the law? Illinois Real Estate Real Property Disclosure. Illinois Residential Real Property Disclosure Act has been effective since 1994. It's a consumer protection law designed to give buyers the benefit of the seller's knowledge about the condition of the property they are buying. It is a series of questions intended to have the home seller disclose any known material defects. Okay, and also it says here, future occupants of the residential real property, unless the seller believes the condition has been corrected. Condition of property changes after the seller has filled out the form. Now, if, for example, or for whatever reason, they fill out the form and the property condition changes, then they have to write a supplemental disclosure, okay? So again, it is a great form for you to understand and know. Now let's kind of go over the form itself. Here it is. Let me bring it up to you here. Fill out the screen. All right, there it is. Now, this will be, again, for the seller to fill out the property address, city, state, zip code, and the name. And then right here, where you see the cursor, that's where the date would be, whatever date it is. And then again, these are just questions. For example, have you occupied the property in the last 12 months? Yes, no, or not applicable, okay? Let's just go with the premise that you have lived in the property for the last 12 months. You're an individual selling the property, not a LLC, not some other entity, not even a trust. It's just an individual, okay? Let's just stick with that one for now. Obviously, if you're going to have questions regarding that, obviously you can reach out to me at 630-777-4597, and I can point you to even an attorney that can answer these questions for you. Number two, do you have flood insurance in the property? Any flooding issues? Are there material defects in the basement, foundation? These are the kind of questions they're asking, right? Are you aware of any leaks, defects in the roof, ceiling, or chimney? Are you aware of defects in the well equipment, drinking water? Do you know of any elevated unsafe concentrations of radon, asbestos, lead paint, any termites, anything like that, wood-boring insects? So anyway, that's basically, again, what the real property disclosure is all about, okay? So let me now, before I wrap things up, kind of detail what each one of these particular ones are about, okay? Just so you can have an idea, okay? Here we go. If you're filling this out, right, let's talk about it. Have you lived on the property for the last 12 months? Number one, right? You say, well, no, I rented it out to a friend. So the answer would be no, right? And if no, please identify capacity or relationship to the property. Like, are you the landlord? Are you just holding this for a relative? What's the answer, right? Number two, I currently have flood insurance on the property. Yes or no? If you say yes, okay. Again, anytime it says yes on the previous page, the next page I should say rather, you would put in here any comments, okay, regarding that. Explain yourself, please, right? Number three, are you aware of flooding or recurring leakage problems in the crawl space? Do you know of any leaks? Do you notice when it rains hard outside? Do you see trickles of water coming in, or a lot of water? Not only in the crawl space, but also the basement. Is it in a floodplain? Number four. Yes or no, right? If you're not aware, again, you're not required to go out there and start searching to the ends of the earth whether or not it is in a floodplain. Number five, I'm aware of material defects in the basement or foundation. Are you aware of that? Now, if you have a finished basement and the walls themselves, don't allow you to see that, then of course you're gonna put, I'm not aware of it, right? You're not required to do a thorough investigation and break, drywall so you could look around, or unfinish your finished basement and then look for cracks. Of course, that's not the requirement, okay? All right. Aware of any defects in the walls, windows, doors, or floors? Again, are you aware of it? Yes or no? Are you aware of defects in the electrical system? Are you aware of defects in the plumbing system? Number nine. And that includes water heater, sump pump, water treatment, sprinkler, swimming pool, any of those, okay? It's not just the plumbing in my sink, it's the whole water system. You aware of anything, right? Number 10, defects, material defects in the well or well equipment. You know anything that's material, okay? Defect, obvious defect. Are you aware of unsafe conditions in the drinking water? Material defects in the heating, air conditioning, or ventilation system. Material defects in the fireplace or wood-burning stove. Are you aware of any defects in the septic, sanitary, or other disposal system? Are you aware of any unsafe concentrations of radon on the premises? Unsafe concentrations or unsafe conditions relating to asbestos in the premises, right? Concentrations unsafe are relating to lead paint, lead water pipes, lead plumbing pipes, or lead in the soil on the premises. Any of that, of course. You would probably already know this, especially down the road, right? Maybe the city sent you a letter regarding lead pipes that they're going to replace, or maybe you understand that, hey, there could be, this property was built, before 1978, so there might be, and is there any peeling paint, right? Those kind of things could have lead in them. So that's where you would put yes or no, right? Depending on what you know. Again, this is just your knowledge. It's not a grade level, or you're not going to be graded on this, except again, if you willingly, knowingly put false information and it becomes an issue, right, for sure, then the buyer does have the right to sue if they were not aware of it and you were, right? Right. So let's keep it going. I'm aware of unsafe concentration of radon. All right, we already went over that. Are you aware of mine subsidence, underground pits, settlement, sliding, upheaval, or other earth stability defects on the premises? Okay, that's you notice that the property is probably sliding, or it's shifting, or the house feels like it's leaning. Do you know all of that stuff? Make sure to write it down. Are you aware of current infestations of termites or other wood-boring insects? Yes or no? Are you aware of structural defect caused by previous infestations of termites or other wood-boring insects? Are you aware of underground fuel storage tanks? Are you aware of any boundary or lot line disputes with the neighbors? Have you received a notice of violations from the local, state, or federal laws? Are you aware that this property has been used to manufacture methamphetamines as defined in Section 10 of the Methamphetamine Control and Community Protection Act? All right, those are the questions. And if you have anything to say, of course, you would write it down right here. And then you have prepared this report, certified that information is based on actual notice or actual knowledge, without any specific investigation and inquiry on the part of the seller. And then the seller hereby authorizes any person representing any principal transaction to provide a copy. So, for example, you're allowing and authorizing an agent to disclose this report. Make it known, especially again if you're selling a property. This report will be known to the agents showing the home, and they'll share it along with their buyers as well. Okay, that's what's going to happen. And then they certify here that it's correct. It's signed and dated here. The seller acknowledges that the seller is required to provide this report to the prospective buyer before the signing of a contract and has continuing obligation pursuant to Section 30 of the Residential Property Disclosure Act to supplement this disclosure prior to closing. Okay, so that has to be formulated, that has to be done. And then the buyer would also have to be aware that the parties may choose to negotiate an agreement subject to any or all material defects disclosed in this report. It is not a substitute for any inspections. The buyer understands that and guarantees that the prospective buyer or seller may wish to obtain or negotiate the fact that the seller is not aware of a particular condition or problem, and it is not a guarantee that it does not exist. The prospective buyer is aware that the prospective buyer may request an inspection of the premises performed by a qualified professional. And in page number 3 here, it basically is the disclosures, right, and the definitions, Section 5, all the definitions. And the requirements and the liability of the seller, and then everything else, right? And then there's other definitions here, more disclosures and whatnot, okay? So it's important for you to read this and know what's going on. Again, here, just a quick little 10-minute video, so we're not going to go into the details of this, but again, just understand that this disclosure report is required. It is important for you to look at this and fill it out, of course, with the best of your knowledge. But yes, as a homeowner in the state of Illinois, you are required to write down or to note here if this is an actual defect or not. You say, well, if the buyer inspects the property, can't the buyer then tell me, the seller, what's wrong with the property? And of course, if it's courtesy, they might say it. And of course, if it's a material issue in the inspection, they can share with you what they found in parts, right? But, it's not conducive, to, as a seller, as a listing agent, to try to figure out everything wrong with the property, because then you have to disclose everything. And of course, you can do that, but understand that the pool of buyers might be limited, right, to whatever you show. Okay, again, is it to the best strategic move to know everything about the house before you sell it? Of course not, because again, you're going to fill it up with things, maybe, right? Again, if it is proven to be a material defect. But again, the buyer is not required to show the seller everything wrong with the property and why they chose to cancel because of the inspection. Like, if it's best to the seller to not know these things, okay? Anyway, again, if it's obvious, and again, the law here doesn't require you to do an inspection, right? So why try to find more things and just open up more Pandora's boxes, right? So again, you know what you know. Make sure to follow the law and disclose what you know. But let the buyer do their own inspection, and if they choose that, hey, this is just too much, let them walk and find the next buyer to do their own inspection. That's really how it would work. Again, this is about the real property disclosure and laws regarding the state of Illinois. Okay, if you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll be here in the next one.